This is the Freeheel Life Podcast, episode number 84. I'm your host, Josh Madsen, coming at you from the Freeheel Life shop in Salt Lake City, Utah. And it's back to another rockin' rollin' week, everybody. We're back, and we've got another guest, and I'm excited to share him with you. It's going to be a good time. First, we're going to jump into some Newsroom and Notes. Hopefully, all you Americans out there had a great 4th of July weekend and enjoyed it. Our Canadian friends had Canada Day, and I don't know what other holidays were going on because I didn't bother to look it up. So, but I hope you guys had a good weekend, and good to have you back on the podcast. And you won't want to miss this one. It's a classic. So, new articles up on telemarkskier.com. Mr. Dosty and I did a little Q&A talking about the Protector skis. What it's all about. Kind of wanted to just get in something in the written format. If you're a podcast listener and you've listened to what we're doing with making skis at Freeheel Life, what the concept is, why I think it's important, and all that good stuff, you probably already know most of what's in there. But either way, go to telemarkskier.com and check that out. I would appreciate it. Also, premium members of telemarkskier.com, we've got a new updated links in-depth review coming out, and definitely want you to scope that when you have a moment once it's live. If you haven't checked out these new in-depth reviews that Craig's doing, they are fantastic. They've got a written portion, nice imagery, and there's also a video portion where he talks you through the product, all the features, what's working, what's not, what to look out for, what they compare to, all that good stuff. You won't find that anywhere else, only on telemarkskier.com. And we are the ones who are telemark skiers ourselves and know what you're looking for. And we hope you'll check that out and dig into it. There's lots of archived content as well. And we're always putting some of the older stuff up. Eventually, the hope is to get everything we've ever done, whether it be digital or print, since 2003, and get that online as a nice archive. Some things are timeless, right? I mean, gear, not so timeless. Although I know some of you have been skiing timeless gear. So you can find that too. So without further ado, my guest today is another one of the great people I've met over the years that has influenced telemark skiing for the better. In the 1970s, he moved to the Yosemite Valley and lived and climbed there as part of a new generation of rock climbers. It was there that he was first introduced to backcountry touring and skiing, and using telemark gear to navigate through the valley and surrounding areas in the winter to find untouched powder and use skis for travel. His love for backcountry skiing and traveling in the mountains by way of his Freeheel gear led him and his partner Alan Bard to do several big tours in the Eastern Sierra, including setting up one of the well-known routes called the Red Line Traverse. He was also a guide for nearly 30 years in the Ruby Mountains of Nevada. He currently lives in Lake Tahoe, where he loves to get out on his 3-pin gear still and move quickly and efficiently through the mountains. And I actually first interviewed him in 2010 as part of my third feature telemark film called Hippies, Punks, and Misfits. He's a wealth of knowledge, and I love talking to him about his passion of the mountains and his love for telemark. So please welcome to the podcast, my friend, Tom Carter. Okay, Tom, welcome to the Freeheel Life Podcast. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you, Josh?
Doing well. It's so good to talk to you. I was just saying before the podcast when we got on, it's like, it's crazy. I haven't talked to you in over 10 years when I did Hippies, Punks, and Misfits, and we were sitting on your porch and kind of doing the same thing, but kind of an earlier version of it. So good to reconnect.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, man. So you're still living in Tahoe then, right?
Yep, I'm on the North Shore of Tahoe.
Yep. Was it Kings Beach? Is that where you're at?
It's near there. I'm 5 miles west of that, right in between Tahoe City and Kings Beach.
Okay, yeah. I was like trying to rack my brain. I'm like, where did I go to his house?
Right.
Yeah, and Tahoe's so broad. It's kind of like you got the North Shore people, you got the South Shore people. Like everyone's kind of got their own little zone. I mean, it's a massive spot, and especially for skiers, it's like, if you're North Shore, I guess what's are you still skiing resort a little bit?
I skied on lifts this year 2 times.
Nice.
But I got like over 100 days, touring. So it's just, it doesn't, a day, what's a day? An hour, 5 hours, 10 hours, a whole day, whatever, right? But it's just not very appealing to me. But when I go, I have a ball, right? I go like, oh, yeah, there it is. There's gliding and turning. But it's just, to me, I kind of gravitate away from crowds or people that are just buzzing around. Whenever I go in the backcountry, I can't beat that day.
Yeah.
So I tend to just go the next day too. I'm kind of a program to do that, I guess, But just because we're talking about Tahoe at the moment, you can't forget there's also an east side and a west shore too. So, and those are big places. I mean, there's people that ski the whole Rubicon zone over on the west shore, and I never see them for the rest of the winter, and then there's other people that, really kind of work around the clock wherever wherever they haven't been or aspects and elevations and whatever. I mean, you can do it here in Tahoe if you need to. I thought when I moved here from the east side of the Sierra that I was moving to the foothills, and it kind of looks like that, but all you have to do is get in the mountains a little bit and, you'll be satisfied. So it's a nice place for that.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably like a lot of places just getting more and more crowded, but it sounds like you're able to kind of get away from the crowds a little bit.
Just go uphill. I mean, they start falling off right away, including me at times. I can't follow some of my friends up, I can tell you that. But yeah. I mean, people have turned on. It's a big deal. But most people are 18 now, right? Really? Right. I mean, I don't know what the percentages are. You might know, but I'm still freeheeling. I have AT setups, but usually I just go like, 6 to 8 in a new. I don't need a big monster outfit, right? I just, and so anyway.
No, for sure. And so are you, I love that, dude. You're holding strong. That's what I like to hear. It's, so did you grow up on the coast of California? Where are you from originally?
I'm from the Central Valley. My folks moved out of Southern California when they graduated from college. I was born while they were going to college, and then they moved to Fresno because Badger Pass was there, and they'd taken up skiing. And they said, we can live an hour and a half from Yosemite. We can go to Kings Canyon. We can be in the mountains, and our kids will, they were outgrowing that zone, and my dad had some job opportunities, and so we really, my folks basically learned to ski from Nick Fiore at Badger Pass, right? A legend. Oh, you boys, you're living like the kings. An amazing guy. And so that was the foothills and the mountains around Fresno, which there's a lot of Fresno, of all places. We used to call it the No.
The No?
No. N-O, not K-N-O-W. But, and so we'd come to Tahoe and ski. We'd go over to Mammoth and ski, things like that. So they were skiers,
and this is
so I had that going when I stepped out of alpine skiing. Basically, you turn 18, no one's taking you on a family vacation anymore, right? No free tickets. And we just started touring, and we toured, everywhere around, wherever there was snow. Friends were like, let's go. We had wooden skis, lignin stone edges, cluster, wax, whatever. We didn't have skins, that was just, but we knew, I remember staring at a picture of Lito Teodoro's book, and there's a Telemark. We go, okay, like you put your arms out, you put one ski forward, go.
Who wrote that book?
Lito. Lito is an old friend of Doug Robinson's and was a kind of ski mountaineering with the whole Sierra Club deal, peak bagging and whatnot like that. Lito went down on the original Fun Hog trip with Yvonne, Dorworth, Tompkins, and did their route on Fitzroy back in 60s, 69 maybe. Anyway, so he'd been around a long time, but he had a book, Ski Mountaineering, and there's a Telemark deal there.
Oh, wow.
Right, and you just go like, okay. Honestly, we tore the page out of the book. We had it in our pocket. We go, oh, okay, try to do this.
Wow.
And
So this is like,
you put it out there long enough and far enough, eventually it bends and you turn and it felt good and you repeat.
wow, that's amazing. So you're growing up like Fresno in like the 60s then? 70s?
I was born in 52.
Okay.
And I was in Fresno from 57 on. And then, when I was 18, I moved, and I went to Yosemite, went climbing, and I moved there that next week. I mean, climbing completely changed my life. I mean, I just went like, this is it. I'm in love. And so we'd climb, all season. And then in the winter, we go like, well, what do? We can ski across the Mammoth. They're paying like $8 an hour to shovel roofs because they like climbers to shovel roofs. And so we'd ski across and back and forth up to Tuolumne and, around the backside of stuff over up to Ostrander and around. And so that was what we did in the winter. We were bums. Didn't need any money, really, not much. I mean, like co-owned cars with like 5 people, things like that. Truly, and, so, I mean, we were like the original dirtbags. I mean, Becky and those guys set the standards, but we emulated them,
So you went to Yosemite Valley in the 70s as a climber then? Is that when you were
in 71? I went and did my first route in Yosemite, and I mean, basically did handsprings down the aisle. Man, it totally changed my life. Like within a week, I'd quit everything. School, job, girlfriend, moved to Yosemite.
Wow. So that's like basically that early Camp 4 time, right? Is that
early for us? The icons were still around, but they weren't living in Camp 4 like, Royal, Yvonne, Tom Frost, Harding, all those Pratt, all those guys they had the 60s. We had the 70s. So it was the Stone Masters, Bridwell, but it was still in the handoff stage. So we were on the receiving end of that, and we got, back then it was so small. I mean, people really freaking took care of you. They'd school you. What did you do today, Tom? Blah, blah, blah. How was that? Oh, good, easy. Did you style it? No, not really. Go do it again. It was about style. It was about, being one with the rock. I mean, that whole 60s thing really influenced not just how you moved on the rock, but how you thought about it. And really, in all honesty, since we're talking about skiing, it just flowed right from that to skiing for us. I mean, the whole idea was to do more with less. And, because it was so much simpler. We couldn't buy all that. I mean, we were skiing in cotton and Woolrich shirts and, it didn't matter. We figured out 60-40 parkers. Look at Steve Barnett, right?
Yep.
If you could see what he was doing, you'd realize he was bending his knee under all that trench coat.
Yeah, totally.
But, well, we had fun with that, right? We just went like, we can, so that was, I mean, friends of ours were hut keepers, in Tuolumne, up at Ostrander, different places. We met Dave Beck, who's an icon, who took us under his wing. I mean, Doug Robinson was there, and really, casting back, our heroes were Torstein and Skiervald, the Birkebeiner skiers, right, who 1206, they were doing it. So there was nothing new going on. We were just emulating everything we could,
So that's cool. And that's, I think, yeah, you were part of the climbing thing. And I've talked to Doug too. Kind of the same time I met you. I went over to Doug's house and I think he was in Santa Cruz, maybe
Kirkwood. Oh yeah, he was that back then, I bet.
Yeah, so I need to reconnect with him. I actually texted him the other day, same thing. I was like, do I still have your number? And
yeah. No, I have it if you don't.
Yeah, no, but that's perfect. And I love what you said, because like that, it's interesting to think about a time like that, even in climbing, where you've got these guys sort of tutoring you. They're kind of from the old guard, and the style focus. And I'm sure free climbing was becoming kind of the thing at that point, right? 70s, you guys are putting a lot of different routes up, and it's cool to hear that there was such an influence on the style, for you guys to kind of dig into that and not just, go up. There was like this whole other aspect to it that they were trying to achieve with you guys.
Well, absolutely. I mean, let the rock pull you up, to be graceful, right? And to have command both of your senses and physically not, you might be physically stressed, but you were trying not to show it. So there was truly a style with that too. And really did go into skiing. But, one of the things that happened, Wayne Mary hired, who was an original, the first ascent of the nose with Warren Harding and George Whitmore. Those guys, Wayne Mary started the Yosemite Mountaineering School. And the Yosemite Mountaineering School had a winter component. And that winter component, bingo, Ned Gillette. He was the director. And so, where I'm going with this is that skiing on what then were little skis, they were basically, like Taupe and Turlettes, Bone 1800s. They were these tiny, beautifully made skis, right? All Norwegian, Finnish, whatever. But that whole, you couldn't hammer on those skis. You had to be suave. You had to be smooth and read the terrain and understand how to shift gears and use the camber. And if you went out there like a bull, you were going to come back with broken equipment. You were going to post holding back's no fun, right? So, there was a big cross reference to that. The minute you're in the backcountry, you can go rock climbing. Yosemite's kind of like, it's a roadside attraction, really. But look what's around you. Just whenever you get on top of something, you go like, whoa, what's that? Let's go over there. And on skis, it's easier than hiking.
Yeah.
You glide,
so
right?
I love hearing that because I still ski a lot of retro gear. And so and not quite that far back. Just for the,
you don't need to do that.
Well, just to kind of give people reference to what you're talking about, those early, a lot of them I think were hickory skis, and you mentioned lignous stone edges. For those that don't know what a lignous stone edge is, it's basically it's like my understanding, maybe correct me if I'm wrong, but it's almost like a hardened wood of sorts, right? Like
it's like a resined wood, so it's permeated with resin. So it was the hardest wood in that layup, in that ski.
Right.
And you had hickory. And then you pine tarred it, which was a whole nother, talk about aromatherapy and stuff, right?
Yeah.
So it was this whole setup. We're skiing back then. We're like on 210s, bamboo poles to your shoulder kind of thing, and choking up when we started learning how. The first thing you do is fall down, and you go like, oh, I guess I got to figure out how to, what do I do? Wedge? What's that called? What's snowplow? Here we go. And really, the shoes were the weakest link, and the bindings. The skis, they've survived for hundreds and hundreds of years, right? Basically, but I still, if you took all my skis and you say, Carter, you only got one pair of skis, I wouldn't pick wooden skis, but I would pick a shorter version of what we were dealing with then, because you can go everywhere on it.
Yeah.
You can't. No, 45 degrees, let's be reasonable. Yeah, I could side slip that and hop around a little bit, but 99% of the time you're not doing that. You're going from A to B to get to that thing, or to look at whatever's next on your menu, So, I tell people, I go, take all the stuff, but freaking leave me a pair of 3-pin boots and that ski, and I'm fine. I'll ski for the rest of my life.
Yeah, and you get
kind of what I do.
Yeah, well, and that's interesting too, because I always think historically, when you guys are coming back into this is what, mid 70s. You guys the mountaineering school's happening. Is that the right time frame? Yeah, and and you guys are getting sort of introduced to this equipment and traveling through the mountains and learning this Telemark turn on this gear that you're describing, but it kind of has this mountaineering component to it right off the bat. You guys are you're traveling through the mountains, and it's not necessarily, you tell me, I'm always curious, was the descent as big a deal as the traveling aspect, or was it kind of a mixture of both, like we would think of backcountry skiing now? What did it feel like as you guys are learning all that, the techniques and stuff?
Well, let me relate it to climbing in a sense. When we first went to the valley, these old timers basically said, come down, let's talk about this, right? They saw us, they saved our lives basically. And they said, and they didn't hand us the list, but they said, listen, go do A, B, C, D, E, and come back, let's talk about it. So they were laying out like how to gain experience and mileage without ending up in a bag, right? So that's kind of what we took into the mountains. We went like, okay, what's the easiest route? We could ski to Tuolumne. Not, yes, there's some avalanche hazard, but most, you ski up the Snow Creek switchbacks, you're on the road, you go to the hut, the old mountaineering school ball, and so we would just take it from there. We would just slowly up the ante. We didn't rush into stuff. We knew how to read maps. There's the contour levels. Yes, there's a bunch of 79-foot steep sections or cliffs in every 80-foot contour, right? But, look around. It was basically like exploring a coastline. You're not going to you're going to look from a distance, then you're going to go a little closer. Okay, what's the tide? What's the wave? What's the current? What's the wind? All right, let's poke around some more, and then you flip. So you got strong on that equipment because you had to move that. I mean, you have to be strong to move anything around, but I mean, so you were fit, you were aerobic, you were enthusiastic, and you started to become more and more familiar with it. Became your backyard. I mean, that's why when you go on expeditions, you don't get really intimate. I mean, I'm not saying you can't. You can, of course you can, but I mean, you don't know. That's why you go back again and again. You go like, oh, look at this little niche here. Look what's around the other side of this cirque. Holy shit, this is beautiful, right? That happens every day, but it doesn't happen on that intimate level until you spent time there. And so, again, it was just racking up time and mileage, and that's what we had. We didn't have jobs. We all worked part-time so that we wouldn't be bound. We were kind of unemployable. Actually, we were good employees. We didn't mind working. Well, you know what I mean? We were good, but we just were going like, like the old adage, it snowed, we won't be in. I have to go see Dr. White. So, I'm not saying you can't do that today, but there's just so much, a lot of stuff gets in the way of that. Adventure to me is not, I do my research, but to venture to me is not to have it stacked up in a list of moves, turn left at the Pine, cross the creek, and there's a lot of information out there that gets in the way of just being open to what the terrain and the weather and the snow conditions are dishing out.
Yeah.
That's what I think. Now believe me, there's people that are doing it every way possible, right? Hats off to them, right? They can, what's his name? Jeb, the guy who skied the red line a couple years ago. He did first, second, whatever. But he did it by himself. Well, he skied way more peaks than we did. He like hammered it. But what was funny, I so hope I meet him someday, because I want to just say, tell me tell me about that. I was like, how'd you do that? Where do you go? But when I read his account of it, don't get me wrong, Jeb, our red line that we did was like a carnival. Man, we were there to like party. We wanted to just turn the Sierra in that section that we knew really well into like, look, there's a ramp. Let's hit that, right? It was like a little skate park to us. There was always more to know about it, but he like hammered it, whack. And ours was like, no, it's a frolic. We're having a ball here. Yeah. And that was, I'm not saying he was like goose stepping from A to Z, but being by yourself. And I don't know. There's always the mystique of that, but anyway, what I'm getting at is a bunch of different ways to do things. And people on big skis, and I don't care what bindings you have on them. You spend enough time in the mountains, you're going to have some incredible, things are going to come back to you that you'll never forget, that you'll always cherish, of course.
Yeah. And I love hearing that story, because it's like, I mean, you're going back to a time where you're getting introduced to not only like a telemark turn of a page you ripped out of a book, but it's like this whole encompassing skill set where, you're reading a map. I mean, there's no cell phones, there's no, GPS satellite. I mean, you're learning, like you said, it's like your backyard, and you're incrementally learning as you go. You're getting tutored by other people, and yeah, I mean, it's cool to think. And I mean, it must have been just complete emptiness back then. I can't imagine there's like, you're seeing a lot of people. I mean, you're climbers, and now you're going out when it's snowing and going into this, looking at the terrain covered in snow now in this totally different way. I mean, it must have been, like you said, an incredible adventure just to be out in some of these areas where there's no one, you're in the wilderness essentially.
Oh, Josh, there were no tracks. There are no tracks. You would recognize someone's style from the tracks. Go, oh, look, that's John Isles, right? We lived in Mammoth for a while too, and there were some amazing skiers there. And you go like, fuck, I know that turn. There's only one guy that can turn on that terrain, make that turn. And you go back the next day and you go like, hey, Isles, where were you yesterday? Yep, that's what I thought. I thought I saw you.
You saw the remnants of the turn from whatever guy or girl. That's amazing.
No, it's true. And by the way, there weren't people, not everybody had to even look at a picture ripped out of a book. Like Artie Burroughs from Colorado. I mean, there were people that were alpine skiers. They put on Telemark gear. They did it. Bingo. Ripped it. It was embarrassing. You're going like, damn. We've been at it for years. That guy puts them on. I remember because we had friends in Mammoth that were like racers there, and they got on the ski and we just went like, damn, why did we do that? We were on top of it. Now we're like down the line.
Oh my God.
I mean, because you can take that, right? You can take whatever you're good at. And that's what old Gillette used to say when we would even teach. She goes, Tom, forget about teaching people. Tune them into something that's a movement that they'll love, that they've done before, match it up. Whether it's socks on the kitchen floor with low linoleum, there's glide. Like, get them to love it, then they'll do it. They'll do it, they'll learn how. Right? I mean, not the positive shin angle and the vector forces are going to, screw that, right? I'm serious, though. I mean, there were people, and so because of that, because it was so new, there was a bunch of different ways to really do it. Right? We jump turned because our freaking tails of our skis fell away from our boots because our boots had the torsional rigidity of a flip-flop.
Yeah. Yeah. What kind of,
right?
Real quick. I'm curious. So when you're getting in, I mean, are you starting on like Alpha boots at first or
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely.
That's what we're talking about.
Alphas, Corona, then they were the Corazones, and then they were like, some people tried the double boots were just mushier, right? Just double the mush. But yeah, and then, I mean, when we went to New Zealand with Ned and skied the Southern Alps, we did like this 30-day tour. We had Neuronas. I mean, I swear to God, my Tivas have more torsional rigidity than those things.
Yeah, I mean,
they were well made. They weren't coming apart or blowing up like the Alphas. We called them Ralphas, right? You're gonna have to, and you would just bring a repair kit, right? It used to be like a beer can. You would cut the metal, poke holes in it, and splint the sole because it would split.
Oh
right
my God! Yeah, see, people probably don't even, and you kind of mentioned that having finesse with the equipment was almost necessity with the equipment limitations. It was like, it was the style was important, but also like, people it's a long time ago where someone carried a tip kit, for instance, because you broke tips on your skis, and like you said, I didn't even know you had splints for the boots. That's fascinating. So
the tip on the ski, friend of mine's trying to learn how to telemark, breaks his ski, puts the tip on. The ski's like 10 or 15 centimeters shorter, right? That becomes his back ski. Bingo, has the telemark.
Oh, interesting.
You get it? All of a sudden, the short ski, you're not putting that out front, right? So whatever ski you didn't break, big left turn. Now I get it, right? It's like skating. I mean, everyone, they did it thousands of years ago. It was the short ski you broke. That's my pusher.
Huh.
You know?
That's interesting.
Right?
Well,
I mean, they found those skis in like peat bogs in Norway. They go, there's a long one and a short one. What's the deal? You go like, hey man, put them on. You'll find out.
right. Yeah. Well,
You'll make it work.
I mean,
looks like a scooter.
If you're starting on alphas, I mean, you must have gone through Galibiers and early solos, you know, as you get into the early 80s, I would think. I mean, when did the boots, when was the first leather boot where you were like, okay, now we're getting somewhere, you know? Because like you said, double boots, for those that don't know, it's got like an inner liner. And it's good for drying, but like you said, it's double the mush. It wasn't like stiffer. So
no, and that's what people started putting on. Remember, that was when the Merrill Super Comps came out. There was a cuff.
Yep. Yeah.
Right. But regardless, I mean, the Oslo Summits were our boot that kind of was like, holy moly, have a boot. And that then changed. It took about 2 years. We were in on some of that design. God, I can't remember the guy's name. Bruce, somebody at Oslo. Anyway, and that like crippled everyone's heels, because and they would go like, the guys in Colorado aren't getting these bone spurs. I go, they're not skiing up. Right? And but then the extremes came along, and we skied. Did we have it? Most of the red line we skied on extremes, which were leather boots, no buckles, no buckling system, and we just thought had just died and gone to heaven, right? I mean,
yeah, that's a big step from the early solo boots to the extreme, which is like, it's got reinforcement in it, so it's pretty laterally stiff, but still, you know.
When's the last time you skied on them? I put on a pair about 10 years ago to like do this little tour because my other boots were getting resold or something, and I was amazed. I just went like, oh man, Tom, you just have those memories, but I don't know how relevant they really are, right? I mean, it wasn't mushy. I mean, you couldn't twist it, wring it out, but you know, it was still. I mean, the boots. I mean, what you have these days is remarkable, really. It's
for sure.
It's actually too much. It's kind of, I mean, that's what I think happened to Talion is, I mean, everything got so heavy. It went like, well, why not have a releasable binding if it's this heavy? And, you know, I don't think everyone needs all that. I mean, it's nice to have a set, but most of the time you can do more with less. You know, I mean, I'm not saying I'm a zealot for it, but I probably fringe for sure in regards to just like, you know, I go like, I have an old pair of Excursions. You know what a Garmont Excursion is?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
It's like a two-buckle bucket.
Yep.
Fuck, I skied 90% of my time on that boot, on a ski that's like a pin binding, which are hard to find these days.
Yep.
A pin binding, and I go out every day, and I'm not just on some freaking, you know, logging road, but I'm not like tearing it up. I'm not, I mean, you know what people are doing these days. You need a boot to land that stuff, but I'm not getting in the air, so it doesn't bother me.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, and that's kind of how your name popped up. For me, when I was skiing for Karhu in the mid 2000s, and all of a sudden I start seeing these photos because they kind of started as I was leaving, they started kind of using a lot of this retro photography, and I'm like, who are those guys? And they're like, well, that's Tom Carter and Alan Bard. And I'm like, okay. And that was like the first time I had heard your name, and, you know, and then later we ended up linking up. But I mean, so where did that all happen? Like Karhu in the early 80s that you and Alan sort of become acquainted with that company? Yeah, I'm trying to think about that. Do you remember back with the retro photos? I think that was Mike Catrop and Graham. Yeah, guys there were Graham Gephardt. Yeah, right. They took great care of us. But what happened? Everyone probably knows the name Ned Gillette. There's two Ned Gillettes. There's a Ned Gillette that's a kayaker, open water kayaker, and there's a Ned Gillette who was a Nordic skier and did a bunch of expeditions all over the world. And Ned was the director of the Trapp Family Lodge in Vermont.
and he had worked in Yosemite at the Yosemite Mountaineering Center, and we'd met. And he said, "What are you guys doing this winter?" And we said, "Well, we're going to go ski over to Mammoth and shovel roofs again." He goes like, "I got a job for you in Vermont if you want one." And we go, "Doing what?" He goes, "He's teaching skiing." And I go like, "I don't know how to teach skiing." He goes, "You love it. You'll be fine." So we drove out there. It was like truly like a 3-month job, kind of maybe 4. But Ned was an Olympic hopeful. He was a Dartmouth skier, beautiful track skier. And when you can ski like that, you can ski anything, right? You can turn a race ski on a hill, in the right conditions. And he was into expedition skiing. So Alan went on a couple of expeditions before I did. They skied around the northern point of Ellesmere Island, up in, west of Baffin. And then they skied around McKinley, Denali, with Galen Rowell, Doug Weens, Ned and Alan. And that's when Alan said, he said, "Here we have this giant mountain. We have these tiny little boots and skis and these huge packs." He goes, "This is upside down. We want small packs and big boots. Let's go." Right? We aren't really skiing. We're just moving through the mountains on skis. And then we all went to New Zealand, Jan Reynolds, Ned, Alan, and I, and we did this 30-day tour of the Southern Alps in midwinter on, again, light gear. But we had to carry a pair of frickin' ice boots and crampons to do some of these passes, which we really never had to pull out. But that was the backup, right? And when we got done with that, Alan goes, "Carter, this is frickin' nuts. We like to ski. We're really just hiking on skis." And we didn't get to spend time in the mountains because you had to make your mileage. You had to get to the next section of the route. So that's when we looked at the Sierra. And this is kind of important in a sense is because I don't want people to think that we could ski anything, any day, any time of the year. The spring is where that light gear shines because, you're skiing on corn, hopefully, right? So you're timing the year, the season, all that stuff. You get the same amount of snow and have what looks like an identical winter and have totally different snow conditions at the end of the season, right? I mean, if you fill in the little sun cups with periodic storms and all of a sudden you have the freaking glycerin apron below you that's flawless, you'll have the time of your life. At the same time, all of a sudden you have, north-facing kickboard crust. It's pretty hard on that little stuff. Now you're really resorting to jump turns but on the new skis today, you could tear it apart. But anyway, so what we learned from Ned was that these were incredible places to go, but we really didn't get to ski in them. We skied through them. It was kind of like being on the Autobahn as opposed to being on a single track. And that's what we wanted. We wanted that exploration, like, oh, let's ski around the corner. What's this? Oh, if we bring a rope, we'll be able to we don't have to rappel, but we can ski down into that little zone and look where it takes you. That's what we did in the Sierra. And we did it mainly, everyone goes like, "Oh, Easter, I'm going to the Easter break." I go, "You guys, you're going to be in transition." Yes, the east side gets a ton of heat and it looks like the snow's walking up the mountain away from you, but you get on top of those peaks and you look west and all you will see is white. And that's why we used to say, May 10th, let's go. We would ski before that, of course, putzing around, reconnoitering, skiing certain lines. But if you want to ski for a week and a half and you want to skate and play and drink water right off the rocks and be, that's the time to do it. I shouldn't tell people this, but it's true. It's May is the time for the show. We finished the red line on the first day of summer. On the 21st of June, we skied out at Mammoth and there was 15 feet of snow. To get down to the road from the banks was the front point down. It was nutty. Yeah, but those are big years. Those are monster years. Superlative skiing conditions. I look at the pictures, I go where are the rocks?
Yeah.
The whole mountain's just slathered, right? So we were lucky. We were on those little skis and light packs. We would weigh our packs. 25 pounds. This is not gourmet. We're not eating, we're fueling. Let's go.
Yeah.
We want to go. We'll chew on the. We would say we'll chew on the scenery. That'll satisfy. That'll satisfy us.
Yeah,
right.
That's not too bad of a pack weight. And I mean, so were you? So did you guys get involved? Like you talk about kind of flip flopping, going from skinny on the bottom to a little bit wider. So were you and Alan? Were you guys a part of developing the Karhu Extreme? Was that part of you guys, or was that something that just... Okay.
Yeah, but I don't really know. I mean, most of the time, those guys knew what they were doing. They would just go, "What's this like?" And we would go, "What happened?"
Yeah.
The dimensions are right, but it's like it's got this weird hinge in the, or whatever, and then they would dial it in. So it wasn't as if we were like, in the layout room, laminating stuff together. But we definitely had feedback on that.
Yeah, because and for people that don't know that particular ski, I mean, if you look at the Karhu Extreme, sometimes people call them the red sleds. Right. It's like for its time, it was fairly wide, and I can't remember if that was even single camber. I'd have to go look at mine. It was single camber.
For sure, because we went from the XCD GTs, which had a lot of camber, which was an awesome ski because you could skate with a pack, in the rolling terrain, because you could get off, you just weren't pressing in the middle of the ski as much.
Yeah.
And then they went from that to the comp, XCD comp, and then they went basically to the extreme. And anyway, those are, still that dimension, that ski shape. There's skis made like that today.
Oh yeah, those ski great. I have a functioning pair of Karhu Extremes. I have a pair of.
Good for you.
Oh, dude, I ski them on the regular. They're good. It's a good ski. And I've got them with a 3-pin setup. I forgot about the XCD Extreme. I have one with a yellow top sheet, but the base fell off it, so I haven't been able to ski it. But no, that sets the tone. And what? So I wanted to bring this up because obviously one of your, I would argue, is pretty legendary is the Red Line Traverse, and you kind of bring that up. Explain to people exactly what the Red Line Traverse is, and was it you and Alan that kind of mapped this out and then did it?
And Chris Cox. Who was our closest friend, and he was the Eastern skier. He was probably the best skier of all of us. But yeah, it was like, what we would do is we would work for Dave Beck, Sierra Ski Touring. So we'd be in the backcountry, back up behind Tyndall on the Tyndall Plateau, skiing the high route with guests, back and forth. So we were in as good a shape you've ever been in your lives at altitude, skiing, humping loads. So really strong. You've been doing this all winter, kind of to roadside stuff around Mammoth, because you don't really tour in the midwinter. You could, but that's really what we saved that for, like, starting in March. Things were coming on, so we'd work for Beck, and then, at a certain point around May, everyone stops skiing, or most people do. Zealots don't, but people always go, like, you're hiking down the trail with your skis on your back, and you go, like, where was the snow? I go, see that river? It's coming from somewhere, baby, And so we would have, again, this is like, we had been driving by this certain scenery over and over again on these other tours, guiding, base camp tours, Trans Sierras, loop trips. And just because of that, we kept getting closer and closer and kind of filling in the data. Okay, look, that looks like that connects. Do you think if we went behind that and traversed around, could we get around, blah, 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 just to kind of, again, like if anyone's ever made a trail, they've thought about stuff like that. And so we skied it. It took 2 years to do it. We cobbled it together. Doug Robinson had said some fairly he mythologized it almost, right? He's going like, they never got more than 200 feet from the crest. I go, no, Doug, that's not the case. There's like freaking cliffs for miles sometimes, right? So no, we pushed it high, but by today's standards, I mean, people could just up the ante all over the place. But anyway, so what we did was we skied from south of Whitney, the southerlymost 14,000-foot peak is Mount Langley. So we skied into Langley. We skied Langley, Whitney, parts of Russell, because that was pretty difficult skiing on the north face of Russell. Then, so we're weaving our way north as close to the crest as we can, and we end up 82, huge year, skiing about half of it. 83, another big year. And we did other trips. We did the Monarch Divide and some stuff from Mineral King. And that also kind of filled in little pieces. We would go, oh, yeah, look, that'll link up. So in 83, we finished that tour at Mammoth after skiing, things like through the Palisades, the U-Notch, Dolphins Inn Pass, hooking up a bunch of chutes and couloirs. And then, but not all of them, not even close, which I think that's what Jeb did, which I still would love to know. But so that was kind of, at the end of our article that we did for Powder, we did something we'd always wanted to do, take a low flight over the Sierra. And that's what it felt like, because we were light, we were strong, the mountains were shining, right? The snow was not always brilliant, but mainly, the north faces are always going to be a problem. In regards to like, when do they turn, right? And they're not, we got 2,500 foot face, different skiing at top than the bottom, So, but it was just like glycerin, right? It was beautiful conditions for the most part. And you could skate and you could pole and you could glide. You weren't not trudging. And because of that, you could go, oh, let's go up there. Look at that. There's a little notch. Let's go through that notch. Look what this does. This connects. And that was our goal, really. It wasn't like to lay down something. It was to just see if we could do it.
Yeah, so it was all...
people have done doing stuff like that forever. I mean, the freaking guys in checkered shirts in Switzerland would have done it 150 years ago.
Yeah.
No,
I mean, you guys were...
I'm not kidding.
No, for sure. I know, and I think that really is kind of the significance is you guys contributed to this kind of lightweight, early Telemark touring where, like you say, like it's so cool to hear you talk about it, because the way you're moving through the mountains, it's like, it's not just like switch back up, ski down, switch back up. It's like you guys are like utilizing all these different techniques to like move A to B and skiing along the way, and you using all these different techniques that allow you to kind of move quickly and efficiently. It's cool listening to it. I'm like, wow, I need to get better shape, man.
I mean, if you when you go in the mountains and you see certain tracks, whether they're up or down or across, you can tell something about that person. Is it sinuous? Is it, does it link up without having to try too hard? Right. And, that's kind of what you do, because there's like this misery meter, right? There's this governor on you that, it all depends on your fitness and your skins or your whatever, your packs or whatever else. But, we had our system, not everybody's system. We had our system dialed in to feel like we could really lope around in the mountains. And that's an incredible feeling. And you're only going to have, and I'll just say this to everybody out there, you only have so many years where you can dial that in. And it takes a total commitment to both your fitness and the spirit of being in the mountains. And if you nail that down, do not come out of the mountains. Just stay there as long as you can, because you'll never forget that.
Yeah, I love that. That's some great advice for people. And yeah, I mean, achieving that level is not simple. And I'm curious too. So before I forget, I wanted to ask you about, I seem to remember talking to other people that at some point, you and Alan had some sort of a slideshow that maybe you took to Europe, Europe or something. And you were like, I don't know if proselytizing.
I wish we went to Europe.
Oh, you guys did?
We went to Europe in our dreams all the time.
I feel.
We toured. And I would tell everybody this. At one point in our lives, we were shameless self-promoters, and but because we had a guide service that we were promoting,
yep.
And we skied these lines, these routes, and and we had some sponsorship. We had Karu, we had North Face, et cetera. And so we did these, a series of shows for like, wow, almost 5 years. I used to know the titles to all of them. I can't remember now.
Like a slideshow.
Romancing the snow, right? It was always some goofy, but
I love it.
But we had, we did like a first 2 projector and then 3 projector show. And it was like an art project. I mean, this will sound super corny. Like we would put these slides together and with the music, and we would be in tears. We'd go like, look at that. Oh my God. That makes me go there, like be there. And we did, and we really believed kind of in an evangelical way almost that like that's what people really needed to do. They needed to get away. Like my friend Joe Royer, who runs Ruby Mountain Hell, he owns it, would always say, Tom, you know what it's like not to go. And so we were basically going, hey guys, this is what it's like to be there. Don't miss it, right? There's certain things you're going to have to do without, but they will pay off, right? This will pay off in spades. And, there's people that I still, every now and then I meet somebody and they go like, Tom Carter, I was at your slideshow. You and Alan nailed it. It changed my life. I mean, it doesn't happen every day, but there are people that really did feel it. And that was really fun to put that together. It was like, it truly was our mission. We kind of just went like, okay, this year, what do we do? How do we really make them, just fall into it? Can we carry them away?
And were you guys shooting all these photos yourselves while you were out touring?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then
it was all old. Yeah, so you take all your stuff, you have your 25-pound pack, and then you throw your Nikon and 2 lenses in there. I mean, God, how smart is that?
Yeah, I know you're like going for.
But that's what we did.
Well, and it obviously documented all these amazing places. I mean, how many? So primarily the slideshows were only happening in the U.S. though. Is that right?
I don't think we ever did anything out of. I was wondering if I was going to say California or not, but we did some in Arizona. We did some in Utah. I might have done one in Idaho up in Ketchum or something. But yeah, I mean, it was just local.
Yes.
Bay Area always was the biggest draw for the mountains because, they have a history. They have the Sierra Club, all those camps, David Brower, Rafi Bedayan, all these guys. LA has a component, but the Bay Area is really has always had a history of traveling and spending time in the Sierra.
Yeah, no. Well, see the mythology. I thought you made it to Europe, so see how the mythology. It's like a game of telephone.
I would love to have done that, but those guys were. That's the other thing. I mean, you see some of that footage. Anywhere there's going to be local characters that are just freaking hitting it out of the park, and that's so cool. I mean, that's what, you're only going to be, I don't mind being a big fish in a little fish in a little pond.
Yeah.
Right. I don't mind that. Right. And, because you get to know your pond.
Yeah, no, for sure.
But, yeah.
Well, what did you, so throughout the 80s, like when you guys are doing this, are you guys, I always am trying to kind of connect the dots. Like you said, you guys are mostly like, Sierra, kind of really focusing on skiing in that area. Did you guys, you brought up Barnett, and like, I'm curious, did you ever crisscross paths with like Steve Barnett up in the Pacific Northwest, or like Dickie Hall on the East Coast when you were out teaching in around Stowe, I guess would be the best thing. But were you crisscrossing paths with these? Back then it was like there's kind of these little hubs. You got like, Dickie Hall in New England. You've got Barnett up in the Pacific Northwest. You got you in California. You brought up Artie Burroughs. Artie
Burroughs was and Julie Niels, and we bumped into people and some of those people, but Dudley Rude in Vermont, he was the rudest of all. He was awesome, amazing skier.
What was his name?
Dudley Rude, R-O-O-D. He's still alive.
Huh.
That I mean, Barnett, he had his own rig going up there. We really, we skied different places. We'd go up ski the volcanoes, and ski this and that. And who else was? There's some story. We ski, went down to Mexico, skied the volcanoes there, went to Ecuador. Volcanoes, they're kind of lower hanging fruit, right?
Right.
But no, we were just local kids, really.
Yeah. No, and
didn't get around much.
No, I love that, because that's what's so cool about that time is, like, I feel like there's these common stories of, like, yeah, somebody pulled the page out of the book and learned, and it was kind of, back then, you're pre-internet, and there's not a lot of media sort of tying all that together. So, yeah,
not really. If so, you'd see it the next year. It would be some little, half a paragraph about something.
Yeah. No, for sure. Well, you even brought up Powder Magazine, which is totally fascinating because, nowadays, Powder no longer exists, but people, they kind of, towards the end of Powder, it was definitely like Telemark is dead and all this. But, back when you guys in the 80s, you guys were actually, so did you guys do an article about the Red Line Traverse in Powder Magazine? Is that kind of how that went down? Yeah, we'd written this kind of, Alan wrote the first article for Powder in like 77 or 8 called Free Skiing. Funny, right? Huh.
Coined the term, some people claim, but about, hey man, it doesn't matter what you're on. We're all gliding. Let's get together and have, a freaking party. I'll learn from you, you learn from me, kind of a thing. And so that was the first article that appeared in Powder. And then we published a bunch of different stuff, like usually once a year. We had met Dave Moe. It's all your connections, right? It's not how you write. And if you have your photos and you have an article, then you kind of are in there back then, right? Because they didn't have to scramble around trying to match stuff up. And we skied we did a bunch of stuff like Batteries Not Included, April Fools, Control Who Needs It, a bunch of different stuff, White Trash, a bunch of articles, just like, basically it's baby talk. My joke was that Al held the pencil and I moved the paper. But, and you're trying to coordinate with your best friend, and we would roll around on the floor. We thought we were hilarious. Sometimes we might have been, but we had some fun with that. And Powder really kind of gave us some room. Dave Moe was still there, and he loved Telly, and we'd skied together and stuff. So we, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And so, but the Red Line did appear in there, and then we did we did an article or two after that until like 85 or 6, and then kind of done writing about that. But it's funny. I have a copy somewhere, a pristine copy of that, and I probably ought to just scan it and put it on the web somewhere, because it's kind of a fun thing. But at the same time, it's almost more, if someone really wants to know, they'll find out. It's not like it's a route that's like has secrets. Again, it's going to be the year, but it was kind of our what would you call it? The ultimate little
opus
communication about what we really believed in, right? What we thought was, we were probably waving the flag harder than we thought, but.
Yeah. No, it obviously got out to more people, and I would love to see that article. If you ever scan it, let me know, because I know I can't. Somebody actually sent me a one by Vic Bine, who wrote a book about Telemark. I think probably late 80s, but kind of a similar thing. Like every once in a while, I get someone will shoot me like a Powder article about stuff, and
right. Oh yeah,
it's always super interesting. I'm always like, wow, all right, cool.
If you ever want to know if someone really lived in the early era, just ask them if they ever had a pair of heel locators.
Oh, dude, that's so funny. I have a pair in the box that someone sent me recently by, I think the company was like Troll or something. I can't even remember. It was like
I wonder.
No. I know what it was. It was Boreal. There was a Boreal heel locator, and it's like, I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but for those that don't know, when you had 3-pin bindings, these guys basically had this like plastic notch that would mount to the right back behind the heel piece, or maybe heel pad's a better way to explain it, because it was just like a little grippy heel pad, and then you had a plastic corresponding notch that mounted to the back heel of your boot. And so when your front foot was flat, basically the little V that was on the ski matched up with the little tab that came off the heel of the boot, and it gave you more torsional rigidity so you could angulate better.
Break your leg.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that too. That's funny you brought that up, because that is along with tip replacements, heel locators are definitely old school.
Right, and bamboo poles.
Yep. Yeah. Totally. Yeah. That's funny, man.
Liliadol poles. Yeah, well, that was because we got tired. I didn't ever have them on my ski because a friend of mine told he screwed himself up for a whole season. We used to have boots that were so bad, you'd start your turn and your heel would be in the snow, not on the ski,
yep.
At a certain point, right? I mean, they were just...
Yeah, you'd get, especially useless. If your 3-pin holes started wearing out, man, you'd start twisting.
Oh yeah, of course they did.
Yep, totally.
Look what you're asking of that equipment. It's amazing that it lasted as long as it did, even.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. Well, so did you move to Tahoe like in the 80s, or was that later on after kind of this whole era of doing the Eastern Sierra?
Well, I have to admit, I went and started working at Ruby Mountain Heli Ski out in Nevada, in the Rubies, in 1983, and I spent 30 winters out there skiing with those guys. And that's when my friend who owned the business, Joe Royer, just goes, like, looks down at my stuff and he goes, like, Carter, it looks like you need some alpine equipment, right? So I alpine skied. We tallied there a while, and then we realized we can't really help our guests out if they break or screw up anything. I can't go like, here, let me adjust the heel piece, bam, there you go.
Yep.
And so I alpine skied in the Rubies. I would pin, so I would telemark around.
Yeah, you're a pinner.
All preseason. Yeah, all preseason, and then, of course, in the spring. But I worked at Ruby, and so back in, like, 93, I actually moved. My gal and I bought a place here in Tahoe. Just a really close friend of mine lived here, and we just went like, where are we going to live? And I go, like, Tahoe, and let's try it. And it's worked perfectly ever since. I never thought I would do my joke is it's the what's my term I come up with? It's the dude vortex. But it kind of is. I mean, you walk around. I mean, there's an Olympian. There's a frickin' World Cup skier. There's the frickin' best guy you've ever seen in the park. I mean, there's Jeremy Jones over there. There's frickin' Cody. I mean, this place frickin' has a mass amount of world-class athletes, heroes, and because of that, there's a cool breeze attitude now and then. I mean, these guys are awesome guys, but there's a lot of people that come here to be near that, and hey, it works. You get close enough to that for a while, it's gonna rub off on you. You're gonna get good at what you do, and yeah, I'm amazed every day I'm out skiing what I see. What they can achieve and how dedicated they are. And when it's just like when you have the Olympics somewhere. It's a nexus. It's going to change the community over time, knowing what happened there, who showed up, what they did. It charges people up, and for better or worse sometimes. But, Tahoe has that. It's like going to Ketchum, right? You go to Ketchum, and they didn't have the Olympics there, but they have an Olympic Plaza. How many people have come from that area or now reside there? It's pretty... It's impressive, so, which is the whole idea, right? That's why we move the Olympics around, so people can have these centers, right? Where both historically things happen, but now they can continue. There's the arena, there's the skating rink, there's the jumping hill, there's, and it gives them, again, platforms to produce or to allow people to, be athletes. at that level and with that infrastructure. It's cool.
Yeah.
It works.
No, that makes sense. And that makes way more. I had forgotten your connection to the Rubies, which I still have not made it there. But I mean,
don't go there. It's not worth it.
Yeah.
Everything, snowmobiles, mosquitoes.
It
rains hot rivets all the time.
I know where you're going with that. I know what's up. No, that's funny. I mean, that makes sense, Tahoe, because that's a straight shot down 80. And a lot of people don't even know that's there. I mean, there's some big mountains back in there that people just don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
No, it's true.
So
it's true.
No, that's
in regards to the desert, when people would tell me when's it good, I go, the desert is good when the Sierra Nevada is off the scale, and that's why no one goes out there.
Yep.
Because the storms have to dump so much snow here to give the desert ranges really ample coverage.
Yep.
And so because of that, yes, you can go ski there every year. But if you want to ski there when it's like, big, then you're going to leave perfect to go explore. And I highly recommend it.
Yeah, no, for sure.
There's times, don't leave good to find good, but, every now and then step out of your space and your comfort zone, and mountains do that to you, right? They're gonna test you.
100%. Do you still make it out there and do some skiing still?
Oh yeah, I go, I don't go, I go once or twice a year, typically before Christmas. I have a little cabin out there, and I ski to my cabin, just kind of, it's my little sanctuary.
Yeah.
But I spend some time there in the summer as well, do some backpacking and moseying around in there. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I do my best. I'm laying out all my stuff. I'm doing a bunch. This is funny. I backpack in the summer, and that's the other thing too. I mean, people are figuring out how to go light, right?
Yep.
Everyone did. I mean, you do the PCT, you drop weight pretty quickly, right? You figure out, I can't do this if I don't drop it. So as you get older and you want to still go out in the mountains, I highly recommend going Spartan, right? So I'm looking at these maps and I'm going like, shit, I've only skied through here. And now you go hiking in there, you know why? Because all the talus was buried.
Oh, yeah.
It was a beautiful corn run, right? Or whatever. But so skiing gets you to places that are much more difficult to hike to. But either way, I'm spending some more time in the backcountry. That's my goal, is just every year, as much as I can spend it back there, then I will. So you never know. Someday they might not let you in there.
Yeah, you never know. I love that you're getting after it still. That's so cool to hear, and that it's cool. You're very much the minimalist, and I like it. I like that perspective, because I think kind of what you guys contributed to the Telemark history is kind of this light maneuverability and moving through it. And it sounds like with backpacking, you're kind of realize the same thing. It's like, how can you move through the mountains efficiently and have the necessary gear, but not overdo it,
Well, that's one of my jokes, was like, I have to take simple gear. I'm an idiot when it comes to mechanics, right? I mean, and that was like our repair kit. We go like, this is it, man. A metal plate, an awl, and some screws, right? And the rest of it we can figure out, But I mean, you screw up the alpha AT binding, it's going to take, you're going to be, how many screwdrivers do I need to bring for that, right? Forget it.
Yeah.
I'm just saying. I mean, there's guys that know how, right? Well, you just pop on another heel piece. Oh, okay. Got it. But yeah, simplicity is nice. It's rare.
Yeah. Well, have you, I guess before we wrap up, I'm curious, like, have you gotten on like the newest Telemark gear and tried that? And I guess new is kind of a relative term, but I mean, it sounds like you're still pinning a bunch. I mean, do you ever go beyond that?
Send me like the whole setup.
I will, 100%.
No, I mean, I would love to, but last year I went out, I saw some footage of the, I'll mispronounce it. What's the French binding?
Majo.
The Majo. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Majo. People call it the Mojito, but it's not the Mojito. It's the Majo.
Yeah. And I went out and I had some friends down at Alpenco Sports here in Tahoe City.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
I know Brandon.
Those guys are awesome. Brandon and Dosty and Jay, all those guys, they just go, Carter, here, take my skis, blah, blah, blah. And I went and skied on it. I just went like, there's a hinge point, at least for me. And if I would have skied them like for 4 or 5 days in different conditions, then, but I like that feeling of the resistance of rolling up on the ball of your foot. And there's just infinite amount of adjustment that can happen there.
Yep.
And there's an amount of like sideways twisting and torquing that allows you to put a ski on edge or not. And because of that, it felt like I was more susceptible to kind of hinge points and rigidity in that setup than I am on a pin boot, regardless of what kind of binding you're in, whether it's a G3 or whatever else. But it just felt, it wasn't like a click bang, which that's what the AT bindings do for me, like click bang, click bang, click bang.
Yeah.
That's not, I want to walk. I don't want to, whatever that is. I mean, you walk all day, you walk every day. That motion makes sense to me, and so, but that binding got a little bit in the way of that feel for me, but I didn't give it a chance, as much of a chance as I'd check that out again.
Yeah, for sure. It sounds like I need to make a drive out there and bring you something. We'll go do some skiing. But
oh, please let me ski on it before you show up.
No.
So I don't make a fool out of myself.
No. But I think you bring up a good point, and the mechanics of a Telemark binding like Majo is so different from ski and pins or even mid '90s cable binding or even a Targa. I mean, it's dramatically different. It kind of reminds me of what you're saying at the beginning, where you on a pin binding, you really, like you're talking about the boot twist, and there's this finesse to, turning the ski onto edge. And when you have that much torsional stiffness of a binding, I mean, everything is so immediate, and so it takes some. It's a different. I don't want to say it's a different turn, because people listening are going to be like, that's not Telemark. I mean, there's all these eras of it. But like you said, in alpine binding, you click in and you go. I mean, it's very much like there's not like a personality to the boot binding and person combo. And
relationship.
Yeah, it totally, everything we've talked about today. I mean, it's all relationship of the gear and how you use it. And yeah, like you said, give me a couple days to figure it out, you'll be fine. But if you just hop right on it and you don't quite know.
It's like even like when I went into stiffer boots, like on the skin track, it was harder for me to flatten my ski out. Sometimes you don't need your edge if you know how to angle your ski on a climb.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You can kind of work. It's a much more subtle connection to the undulation of the terrain, where other guys will just stomp. I mean, they'll put I can't ski that track, but that's what a 3-pin boot allowed you to do, was to conform. It was like a softer climbing shoe as opposed to a more rigid climbing shoe. Rigid climbing shoes, crack climbing and edging. But you want to smear on something and conform to those holds. That's what that boot and that ski and the boot binding ski combination let you do. But it's weak. It's not a robust product. If you abuse it, I mean, you can break anything, right? I mean, some people are proud of that. But if you treat it right, I mean, again, there's that compromise, right? There's that line. I can go light if I treat stuff right and pick. One day I'm not going to freaking charge the overhanging snake-filled couloirs, right? That's not the day for it. Look at the snow conditions. Look what skis I have. But look, there's another route. There's another option. There's another day we can go do that, And I think a lot of people these days, they don't have enough time, and so they just have their hit list. And that's what they go do. And so they haven't built up to that hit list. I'm not saying everyone's like that. And there's people that are freaking living the dream, right? They are right now today. They are at the apex of their skills, concentration, everything, and they're doing it. But most of the people out there are weekend warriors, and you just don't it's hard to put it all together. And so because of that, we compromise and we bring bigger boards, bigger boots, bigger packs. And it freaking drives you into the snow, man. It doesn't let you dance around. You can when you're a freaking world-class athlete, right? Or you're one of the, you grew up here. But most people can't really do that, And so, like, we used to always say, like, you don't have to do that. Don't do a Trans-Sierra. Do a freaking base camp trip.
Yep.
Dig it. Like, you just drop your pack after a day and a half. You'll want to do that. And now you ski that and ski that and ski that. Or just go tour around and look where you're going to ski the next day. Figure it out. Have a little bit more of a relationship with the mountains instead of this kind of, it's not just, I don't know, it's, banging out objectives.
Yeah. No, that's
I don't know, but that's just me. I'm a meadow sniffer. I just,
No, but you bring up the point. I mean, it's like people's time has become much more limited, and there's this idea that it's all about, everything's about bagging a peak or skiing a line, and with limited time, it's like people just are putting the hammer down. There's like this. I like how you talked about just the relationship with the mountains. I mean, that's it kind of takes me back to when you were talking about Tuolumne Meadows, and you're out adventuring, you're learning, you're incrementally building a skill set. You're not just like, hey, I have my app on my phone that tells me how much vertical, and I'm just going to max it out like every single time I go out. And yeah, you lose it, not like you said, not to say that's wrong, but it's kind of like there are some other ways to develop that relationship with the terrain and your skill set where you're not just absolutely maxed out all the time, and you're able to, utilize, your relationship with your equipment to kind of achieve other objectives within the trip rather than, just like what the data says at the end of the day on your phone, and you're just like, I just crushed it, here I'm going to post it on Facebook, and, that's like the end all be all of your experience. So, oh man, dude, thank you so much for walking me through all that, man.
We need to have a few beers together. Next time you're out west, let me know. I mean, out west, out in California.
Yeah.
I'd love to hook up with you. It'd really be fun. I mean, no matter what, and the one thing I would just say to just everybody out there, whoever's been listening, is just like, whatever you're doing, if you're on skis, that's a good thing. I don't care what kind of ski it is. Gliding is a freaking ephemeral, beautiful, it caresses you, right? It gives you back. So I don't care what you're on. This is just what we did, and it's that, those are the tools. What Al say? The tools you use and the place you choose is up to you. And, but just make those choices to get away, because it's a salve. It's going to change everything about you. Is going to relax, and I think we all need to do that these days, right? I mean, time is all you got.
Yep.
And we know what it's like not to go.
Yep.
Here we are, not going, right? So, here's to you and everyone else out there to another good winter, and be safe, and I ski, you ski, we ski.
Yep. I love that, man.
And then you drink the whiskey.
I'm happy to partake with you, dude. It's a short drive to Tahoe.
Yeah. Let's go.
I love that, man. Well, thanks for coming on the show, brother, and sharing your history, and I really appreciate you taking the time.
It's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks too.
All right, brother.
We'll
Talk to you soon.
All right. Okay, bye.
Oh, what a great conversation with Tom. I'm so glad that my paths crossed with him many, many years ago. And, it's so rad to talk to people that were there back in that time. Kind of like when Telemark was kind of coming back and these guys are figuring stuff out. And I think there's such unique stories because like we were talking about, it's sort of disjointed. at least the American story of Telemark, right? Like it's, you had East Coast, West Coast, Rocky Mountains, and that's why I love these history ones. There's sort of these little pods everywhere, and they each kind of had their own little flavor of what they were doing. And I especially love talking to him about his kind of the relationship with a lot of these old Yosemite climbers. And I've always thought that's a really cool piece to that Eastern Sierra crew, and just super interesting. And it's always fascinating just to see where people came across Telemark skiing, the Telemark turn, and how they used it. Obviously our talks in that were great because I think a lot of what those guys were doing is moving through the mountains, and they were obviously skiing some big stuff too. But I like that there's just this kind of cruisability to it, how you can move quickly and efficiently. So awesome conversation. I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did, and I really appreciate Tom taking the time just to sit down and talk again. It's been too long. I can't believe it's been over a decade since we first sat down. So thanks for listening, everybody. Be sure to sign up for the mailing list and stay in touch with what's going on in Freeheel Life world. And you can always find us on the social medias. We're keeping up on that. There's still some ski stoke for when you're ready for it. Some of you are probably jonesing for it, and some of you are probably waiting. But there's always some ski stuff going on, either Telemark Skier Magazine or Freeheel Life pages. So we're going to keep it rolling. Till then, you can shop at telemarkskier.com. I'm sorry, you can shop at freeheellife.com. I can't keep track of it anymore. It's all mixed up. Shop at freeheellife.com for your Telemark stuff. We got the Guru Lou shirt that just came out, and we should have some other stuff coming out here pretty soon. So keep up on it. And for those of you that are on telemarkskier.com, we've got our premium subscription available, and we're still pushing out content on the weekly. We would love for you to be part of the family there and part of the larger Freeheel Life family. Email me, podcast@freeheellife.com. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, I would love for you to rate and review it. Give me some 5 stars and help me boost that up and help people find it so they can learn more about telemark skiing along with us. Appreciate you listening, my brothers and sisters of the turn. And until next week, spread telemark always, my friends. Peace out.